In the winter of 1953, a small North Carolina town was gripped by fear. Livestock was found drained of blood, strange tracks appeared in the mud, and whispers of a terrifying creature spread from porch to porch. The locals called it the Beast of Bladenboro. Was it a cougar, a stray dog, or something far stranger? Something that still lurks in the shadows today? Today, we take you back to that cold, tense winter, when an entire community armed themselves against an unseen predator, and the mystery that's never truly been solved. In the small southeastern community of Bladenboro, North Carolina, a series of vampire-like killings of pets and livestock was happening. The creature during the killings was described by witnesses as a, quote, large cat-like creature, somewhere between 4 and 5 feet long, end quote. Some said it resembled a bear. Some claimed the creature's cries sounded like a baby or a woman crying, but much louder. Whatever it was very frightening to the community. So much so that the locals became afraid to leave their homes after dark. Parties of armed men were organized. Over 700 hunters and trappers converged on the community of Bladenboro, vowing to either hunt down or capture the vampire beast, or better yet, kill the creature on sight. Sure, some say this was all just a hoax, but many residents who lived in this small community during those years still claimed this to be true. For over 65 years, the creature commonly referred to as the quote-unquote Beast of Bladenboro remains a mystery for the town of Bladenboro, and we may never know the truth. Bladenboro, North Carolina, in late December 1953, was the kind of quiet southern town where everyone knew everyone, and crime was almost unheard of. But that peaceful image was shattered just days before Christmas on December 19, 1953. A local woman heard her neighbor's dogs barking and whimpering. When she went to investigate, she saw a large cat-like creature soak off into the darkness. This was the first sighting of the Beast of Bladenboro. On December 29, 1953, witnesses described a creature that was, quote, sleek black, about 5 feet, 1.5 meters long, end quote, which killed a dog in Clarkton, North Carolina, approximately 8 miles, 13 kilometers from Bladenboro. On December 31, 1953, 2 dogs belonging to a resident of Bladenboro were found dead with a significant amount of blood near the kennels. Their owner reported that the dogs were, quote-unquote, torn into ribbons and crushed. Johnny Voss said, quote, my dogs put up a good fight. There was blood all over the porch, big puddles of it, and there was a pool of saliva on the porch. It killed one dog at 10:30 and left it lying there. My dad wrapped the dog up in a blanket. That thing came back and got the dog, and nobody's seen the dog since. At 1:30 in the morning, it came back and killed the other dog and took it off. We found it 3 days later in a hedgerow. The top of one of the dog's heads was torn off and its body was crushed and wet like it had been in that thing's mouth. The other dog's lower jaw was torn off. End quote. The following day, on January 1st, 1954, 2 more dogs were found dead at the Bladenboro farm, and on the night of January 2nd, 1954, a farmer reported that a dog of his had been killed. 2 more dogs were found dead on January 3rd, 1954. An autopsy was performed on one of the dogs, and it was reported that, quote, there wasn't more than 2 or 3 drops of blood in him. The victim's bottom lip had been broken open and his jawbone smashed back, end quote. Further deaths were reported in subsequent days. On the night of January 5th, 1954, a pet rabbit was found, quote, cleanly decapitated and still warm, end quote. And on January 7th, a dead dog was found in a pasture near the Bladenboro swamp. A goat was also reported to have died with his head flattened. Over the next few nights, more attacks followed. Rabbits, goats, and even pigs were found dead under the same strange circumstances. Skulls crushed, bodies drained. Tracks were found near some of the attack sites. Large paw prints, bigger than any local dog could have made. One local described the animal as about 4.5 feet, 1.4 meters long, bushy, and resembled either a bear or a panther, end quote. While another person described it as a quote-unquote small, and noted that there was, quote, a little one just like it, running beside it, end quote. Another local described hearing, quote, a strange noise, like a baby crying, end quote. Though he did not see the animal, he estimated it was, quote, close to 150 pounds, 70 kilograms, the way it went through the bushes, end quote. Another account detailed in a local newspaper contained the following physical description. It was about 20 inches, 50 centimeters, high. It had a long tail, about 14 inches, 35 centimeters. The color of it was dark. It had a face exactly like a cat. Only I ain't never seen a cat that big. It was walking around stealthy, sneaky. A group of hunters from Wilmington spent the night tracking the creature for 3 miles, 4.8 kilometers, around swampland. According to them, the tracks showed claws at least an inch, 2.5 centimeters long, and indicated an 80 to 90 pound, 35 to 40 kilogram animal. The beast's circling movement suggested it might have had an offspring or a mate nearby, the hunter said. On January 5th, the beast was witnessed attacking a dog, which ran away and was not found. Tracks were seen along a creek bank near one of the attack sites. There were 2 sets of prints, and one was smaller. Later that day, in the early evening, another resident described, quote, a big mountain lion, end quote, near some dogs 3 houses down. The creature ran toward her, but it turned and fled when she screamed. Outside her home, the tracks left in the dirt road were, quote, bigger than a silver dollar, end quote, according to the police chief force. A young man named Dalton Norton reported seeing what he called a, quote-unquote, big cat on January 6th, which, quote, made a noise like a baby crying, end quote, on his porch before leaving. On January 11th, 2 cars stopped for an animal reported to be 4 feet, 1.2 meters long. One of the men in the cars were quoted as saying the animal had, quote, runty-looking ears, end quote. It was, quote, brownish and tabby, end quote. On the night of January 3rd, Police Chief Roy Force searched for the creature with his dogs, but they reportedly would not follow the trail. Quote, a half-dozen brave youths, end quote, and their dogs then spent January 4th searching for the creature, while at night, Force and 8 to 10 other officers conducted their own hunt. Hunters who traveled to Bladenboro from Wilmington also searched for the beast that evening, reportedly tracking it for 3 miles, 4.8 kilometers, around the swamp. On the night of January 5th, more than 500 people and their dogs hunted through the woods and swamps for the creature. On January 6th, more than 800 people turned out to hunt for the beast in the swamps. Forrest planned to tie up dogs as bait to lure the creature out, but this plan was not put into action. Officials also ended the hunt itself due to safety concerns. On January 7th, another 800 to 1,000 people gathered to hunt the creature. During the evening of the 8th, 4 fraternity brothers from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill were the only reported hunters. Mayor Fussell officially called off the hunt, unless the creature made another obvious kill or there was a legitimate sighting. The armed hunting parties of previous nights had become too large for safety, and Forrest received a telegram from a humane society in Asheville, North Carolina, protesting his plan to stake out dogs as bait for the creature. On January 13th, Luther Davis, a local farmer, found a bobcat struggling with a steel trap in Big Swamp, 4 miles, 6.4 kilometers from the city, and shot it in the head. Woodrow Fussell, the mayor of Bladenboro, told newspapers that the beast of Bladenboro had been found and killed. However, it had been questioned whether such a small cat could have killed and mangled the dogs. On the same day, Bruce Souls from Tabar City was leaving Bladenboro when he hit a cat with his vehicle. According to reports, it was, quote, bodied like a leopard, end quote, about 20 to 24 inches, 50 to 60 centimeters high, and weighed between 75 and 90 pounds, 35 to 40 kilograms. He took the cat home with him to Tabar City. Yet, a third man, quote, professional hunter and guide, end quote, Barry Lewis, is credited in some newspapers as having killed the animal. There were conflicting reports about whether it was Davis's or Lewis's cat that Mayor Fussell photographed and sent out to the press. Lewis had reportedly hunted in a different part of Bladden County, where he shot and killed his bobcat. So what exactly was the beast of Bladenboro? Theories range from logical to the supernatural. The most common theory is that the beast was a large cat, possibly a cougar, escaped from captivity. This fits the description of paw prints, agility, and the crushing bite marks. However, cougars were thought to be extinct in the eastern U.S. at the time. Some experts believed a powerful wild dog could be responsible, though the puncture wounds and drained blood didn't quite match. Similar in size to descriptions, but again, the attacks seemed unusually brutal. Some locals whispered it was a demon or a vampire-like creature feeding on blood rather than meat. This theory was fueled by the complete lack of solid evidence despite intense hunting efforts. By mid-January 1954, the attacks abruptly stopped, just as mysteriously as they had begun. No creature was ever captured. Some claimed the beast had moved on to other hunting grounds. Others believed it had been killed in secret. Over the years, sporadic reports of similar attacks have surfaced, not only in Bladenboro, but in other parts of North Carolina, keeping the legend alive. Today, the town embraces its eerie history, even hosting an annual Beast Feast to celebrate the local folklore. But for the people who lived through the Winter of Fear, the Beast of Bladenboro was no festival attraction. It was a real, tangible threat that stalked their homes and livestock. The Beast of Bladenboro remains a mystery, suspended somewhere between history and legend. Was it simply a misidentified predator, or something much stranger that passed through the Carolina pines for one chilling winter? We may never know. But perhaps on a cold night, if you listen closely enough, you might still hear the distant growl of something that doesn't belong, something still watching from the shadows. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the legend, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your own theories in the comments. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and keep your doors locked.